episode number 2 to License the Ball podcast. My name is Bilal Yusuf. Let's get right to it. Okay. So what's our first topic of the day? What's going on in Cincy? There's a lot going on actually. They're 1-4, and I hear some analysts that want to talk about and blame Joe Burrow for their loss because he's the one with the biggest contract. But I don't think that's the case. Joe Burrow is playing lights out. He's playing really, really well. In 5 games, he has a 72% completion percentage, and he has 1,370 yards. He's only about 90 yards behind Geno Smith, and I think he's better than Geno Smith, just for the record. And he has 12 touchdowns, which is number 1 in the league. So I feel like he's playing for his money's worth. He's doing what he has to do, but his issue is obviously the Bengals defense. They are 31st in the league. So there's really nothing you can do with that. Only in front of Carolina. Carolina is the worst defense in the league. Cincinnati is the second worst. What are you supposed to do in this situation? What can you do in this situation? You can't do anything. You want Joe Burrow to get interceptions too? Or intercept the ball or tackle someone? But with the Bengals going 1-4, if they don't turn this thing around quickly, they can be in a lot of trouble. And it just seems like it's going to be the Ravens versus the Chiefs again in the AFC Championship. Of course, you got the Bills hanging around there, but we don't know which Josh Allen is going to show up. So the Bengals need to make some serious changes. And you know what I think they need to do? I think they need to hire Saleh, the head coach of the Jets that just got fired. He's a defensive coach. His defense was 7th in the league from the Jets. And maybe if he gets there now, he can't turn them around that fast this year. But if you got a good defensive coach as a defensive coordinator, not as the head coach, maybe you can keep Zach Taylor as the head coach. And you can keep the offense as is because they're doing great. They could be able to compete with the Ravens and the Chiefs. But right now, it just seems like Burrow is doing all the heavy lifting. And guess what? When the defense is good, Burrow is hurt. So now that he's healthy and playing like he's supposed to play, you guys got to act fast because he's an injury-prone quarterback. And that just seems to be the issue with the Bengals. They can never, get both things working. When they did, they made it to the Super Bowl. When they did, they made it to the AFC title game. They rivaled the Chiefs. But when it's not, it seems like they just completely tank. So get that defense up to par, and people need to stop talking about Burrow. He's doing his job, and it's all about the defense. Okay. And I know I mentioned Robert Saleh. As you all know, he just got fired earlier this week. But is he really the problem? Let's see. In my opinion, they made a mistake in the beginning. They brought in an aging quarterback, expecting him to save the franchise, and they have a defensive-minded coach. Their offense is non-existent. And honestly, Aaron Rodgers, at this point, we can say he's not going to save the franchise. He's on the 2nd year of his contract. His 1st year, he got hurt. And to make a change right now doesn't make sense because you're just essentially giving up on the season. Who's going to turn it around with this season when there's already 5 games in, start fresh, and get the offense on the same page? But the problem is the offense doesn't have any big playmakers. they don't really have a running game or any top receivers that are doing that great. It's just basically Aaron Rodgers. Let's see. And he has a three-year contract, and he's already on his second year. Let me see. All they have for their receiving is Garrett Wilson and Allen Lazard. Garrett Wilson is their top receiver with 292 yards. For your running back, you got Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. Their stats are non-existent. What do you want Aaron to do? And I know they're not blaming Aaron, but you hired a defensive coach, you bought an aging quarterback who can make the throws, and you don't have no weapons around him. All this is bad Jets management, which they've been doing for decades. They put together some good teams, but they haven't been able to capitalize on it. So in my opinion, maybe they could have, in the beginning of Aaron Rodgers' tenure, demoted Robert Saleh, or even fired him the minute that the Jets performed bad the year that Aaron got hurt. They did really bad. What was their record? Let me see. 2023, they were 7-10. They should have fired him right then and there. And then they could have gave the new coach a start with training camp, a start with all that, and then they could have figured out what happened during the season. That's the joys of living in LA. You get a lot of noise. But what was I saying? They were 7-10 last year. They should have been fired Robert Saleh if they were going to go that route. But they were hoping that Aaron would come back and turn things around. Honestly, they're performing the way we expect them to perform. They're okay. They're 25th in the league in total offense, which is not that great. Aaron Rodgers is hovering around the middle amongst all quarterbacks. I think that's fine for the weapons that he has. The issue is you have a defensive coach and you have a bad offense and an aging quarterback who also causes distractions with this whole training camp fiasco, which wasn't his fault about him getting hurt, but him getting hurt last year. It's just you try to roll the dice, and it doesn't look like the Aaron Rodgers project is going to be successful due to a multitude of things. Maybe if you get more offensive power around him, things could work out. But firing Saleh 5 games into the season, the Jets are 2-3. It just doesn't make sense. Bad management. Now they're just going to pretty much waste the whole year and try to scramble everything next year with Aaron Rodgers. You think that's going to work when you got guys like the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills, all those guys in the AFC? You can't mess around in the AFC conference, man. You can't. So a lot of things they could have done. I don't think this was one of them. I say they should have demoted Saleh and kept him on the defensive end and found a better offensive coach. Or they could have just rode it out to see what happens this year. And unless they get like a Belichick or somebody, you got to roll with the cards that you're dealt. You put everything all in with Saleh, the defense, and bringing in Aaron Rodgers. There's nothing you can do to make it better. Nothing. So that's just typical bad Jets management. So that's my take on that. Okay. Now, so this is going to be like a 2-in-1 take, or maybe a 3-in-1, since I'm going to talk about the Commanders, the Ravens, and the preview of Sunday's matchup. I'm really excited about this. Commanders are number 1. I said it last episode, they could probably win the NFC. Now they're already number 1. Who knows? Well, I kind of hoped in the last episode that they could win the NFC East. And, they're number 1 so far. Never thought I'd see the day, especially with the Eagles and Cowboys having as much talent as they'd had the past year or two. I mean, this is incredible. So, all bias aside, let's talk about the numbers. They're number 1 in team offense. Let's see. Daniels is number 12 in passing, number 1 in completion percentage, which is 77%. 1,135 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 4 rushing touchdowns. First player in NFL history to have over 1,000 passing yards and 250 plus rushing yards in his first 5 games. He's in the threes in rushing yards, but 250 plus. This is incredible. He's doing what he has to do to help Washington win. The problem is their defense is still bad. Let me see. Their defense is... Yes, okay. So, the Washington Commanders team defense is still 21st in the league. So, that's not a good sign, given the fact that they're facing Baltimore. But this is how close these two teams are. Baltimore is number 2. Washington is number 1 in offense. Baltimore's defense is, let me see, 26th in the league, while the Commanders is 21st in the league. So, what do you think is going to happen? Obviously, I'm going to pick the Commanders to win, but the Ravens are looking like a slightly stronger team because they have Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson and a good passing offense. But our offense is great too. Literally, it's 1 and 2, Commanders and Ravens. So it's going to be an interesting game. It might just come down to coaching. I think Harbaugh is a better coach than Quinn, but we'll see. This game could go either or, and I'm excited that the Commanders are even in this conversation to compete with the Ravens, because Lamar is playing lights out. 9 touchdowns, 1 interception, 2 rushing touchdowns, 363 rushing, 1,206 passing yards. Derrick Henry still leads the league in rushing. Basically, it's 2 high-powered offenses going against 2 mediocre defenses. So the defenses on either team is going to have to make a play. And you could pretty much just flip a coin on who you're going to pick. I'm going to pick the Commanders. Let me know who you guys pick in the comments. This is going to be one of the best games so far this season. I'm pumped up about watching it. And Baltimore are the Commanders' neighbors. So all the Baltimore guys, it's all love. But go Commanders. Okay. Okay, so now my next topic. Are you guys sold on the Vikings? I'm not quite yet, and I'll tell you why. Because they've been in this situation before, them as a franchise, and might not have anything to do anything in the current game today, but let me see. There have been, since 1990, 6 teams who went 5-0 and missed the playoffs. And 2 of those teams are the Vikings. So that's just a stat to think of, okay? I'm not really sold on Sam Darnold. This is his 7th year in the league. He's been an average to below average quarterback for 6+ years. I don't think he's ever thrown... Well, I know he hasn't thrown more than 20 touchdown passes. He only cracked 3,000 yards just once in his past 6 years of playing. Obviously, on pace, he is going to crack... He's on pace to cracking well over 3K yards. He might even hit 5 this year if he continues to play the way he's playing. And he definitely will get over 20 touchdowns if this is consistent. It's only the first 5 games. I need this to continue up until week 8 to week 10 before I can be sold on them. The only thing that goes in their favor is not their stats, not their record, but the fact that the NFC has way too much going on. The Eagles and the 49ers were expected to be the top contenders. They're going through a lot of issues right now. They're going through a lot of identity problems. I think the Eagles right now are 2-2. San Fran is riddled with injuries. So that could work in the Vikings' favor. But they still got Detroit, who's playing well. Jordan Love for the Green Bay Packers is back in it. So just that one division could be so brutal that they might even limp into the NFC playoffs if they make it. And can Sam Darnold handle that kind of heat? He hasn't performed well in the past, just in general. Not so much pressure situations, but just in general. And am I sold on him to be the guy that's going to carry the team to the promised land? Not yet. Not yet. He's playing good right now. He's 13th in the league in passing, which is okay. Second in passing touchdowns. Of course, he's got Jefferson, over there with him. He's only second behind Burrow. First in the league in touchdown percentage. So he's doing good. But is this going to be sustainable? They have a great record. I'm just not sold yet. Let's come back in week 10 and see if they can sustain that. Because a lot of these teams that don't have a lot of superstars, they perform really well, and then they just tank. And the Vikings kind of remind me of those teams. I don't want to jinx them, but I just don't believe in them just yet. They're doing great. They're a great football team. The coach is doing good. But are they going to be able to sustain that? And maybe they don't have to be that great because, again, the NFC is in shambles. But there's a lot of things to look at. I expect Philly to get back on track. We don't know which Dallas is going to show up. And again, like I said, they still got their division to worry about. I think the Lions and the Packers are still a better team than the Vikings. But right now, they're doing what they got to do. They're undefeated. And one more point. They haven't beaten any good team convincingly except for the Houston Texans. Who did they face? The only team they really blew out was the Giants. All the other teams, they barely beat them. They barely beat the Jets. Let's see. They barely beat the Jets. They barely beat the 49ers. An injury-riddled 49ers. Of course, they destroyed the Texans. Barely got by the Packers, and they gave up a lot of points to the Packers. And 17-23 versus the Jets, it's not that convincing. It just seems like they're benefiting from a decent schedule, and they're capitalizing on it. Which, hey, a win is a win, right? They could probably take it further if the NFC keeps falling apart the way it is. Because, again, we looked at the Eagles and the 49ers to be the top dogs, and they're not looking like that right now. But you still got the Lions. You still got the Packers. You still got, not to sound like a broken record, you still got the Cowboys. You don't know which Cowboys is going to show up. You got Baker Mayfield and them doing what they got to do. So it's a lot going on in the NFC. Not quite ready to crown the Vikings the best yet, although their record shows that they are the best. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm not sold on them yet. Okay. Thank you for joining us, and see you this weekend.